people find a way to do harm. If there's evil in your heart, evil will come out of you. And whether it's a knife, gun, a car, your fists. These are just conduits for evil to release itself from people, or hate to release itself from people. And no matter what laws are out there and how much you try to ban or regulate, in a lot of circumstances, it's just going to come out. When I look at other countries, in particular, you know, England. Let's take England for example. Their violent crime rate is significantly higher than ours, even though they've banned guns or severely regulated. When you look at their violent crime rate, or when you look at their, I should say, knife rate, and I should say violent crimes committed with knives, they are so much higher than the United States. It's crazy. I think they're at about 60 or 70 violent crimes per 100,000 people when it comes to knives, versus the U.S., which is a zero point 0.5 violent crimes per 100,000 people committed with knives. So, whether it's a gun, whether it's a knife, it really doesn't matter. People are going to find a way. And the more that you can regulate, or the more that people try to regulate these things out of existence, it doesn't work. We need to look at the root cause of what's going on. We need to, have conduits for that evil, that hate, that hurt to come out that are more constructive instead of destructive. Mental health is a huge thing, in my opinion, where, we just aren't talking about it enough. Or we do talk about it, but nobody really does anything. I know that people scream at the top of the soapbox, and I'm not the person that, is going to figure out and solve all the world's problems. But, instead of just talking about it, we need to actually do something about it and get programs out there, and get the outreach out there, to give people the help so that they don't do these things. But realistically, you can legislate all you want, but it doesn't help, and it tends to, when you put an animal in a cage, or evil in a cage, it tends to want to get out, and get out even in a fiercer, more destructive way than it had you just left it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. I want to dive into this because this is kind of spicy, and I think it'll be good content. We're seeing this renaissance in knife law changes. We're seeing this, things that were deemed evil, like an out the front or an automatic knife or bally song, get off. Now, how do we get that same momentum and translate that over to gun rights? How do we get that same push like SBRs and SBSs and things like that? How do we get those deregulated off the NFA, just like the knife stuff has come off the laws and regulations?
Sure. I think it comes down to educating the public. So, not only do I work for Krate Tactile, but I also run a range here in Wisconsin. It's called the Highlands. And it's a really unique range because, not only do we have a range, but we also have a winery and a music venue. And a lot of people that visit that winery and that music venue are not gun people. They, maybe have never even thought about, holding a gun, having a gun, self-defense in general. One thing that I did there was I introduced non-lethal tools for self-defense. So I introduced, hey, here's your pepper sprays, your tasers. Here's ways that are, non-lethal ways to defend yourself against an attacker, because you are so new, and my audience there is so new to firearms and to that self-defense journey. From there, I've seen people, have that aha moment with that baby step. And it's baby steps in doing small, consumable, little bite-sized bits of information or trainings, or, subjecting people to those small things until they get that aha moment. And maybe they never will, but I've seen more people take that class and that training out at my facility. And then people who I would have thought would never be interested in, taking any sort of firearms training show up to the next class where it's just like, hey, building a personal defense plan. And now they're subjected to the firearm side of things. Do we say in there it's the be all end all best tool ever known to man? Not really. Depending on the situation, it may or it may not be. However, if you can subject people to it in bite-sized little consumable pieces so that they can get that time to adjust and that mental mindset that's anti-gun can switch, I think you're going to be better off. It's finding that middle ground while not compromising on your rights, and showing people that you don't need to be afraid of this thing, but do it in steps that, it's like jumping in the freezing cold pool. You dip a toe in, then the ankle, then you're at the knee. Next thing you know, it hits the area that really shocks you, and then you go all the way in underneath your head, and you're good to go. So, doing that, but with bits of information relating to the Second Amendment and to firearms.
I mean, I think that's so true in a lot of ways. When you come to, we talk a lot about building that on-ramp for people, right? How do we successfully build a community that is welcoming, that has information readily available, easy to digest, and allows for individuals that might not be a content creator or an organization to take personal responsibility to introduce their friends and family into the Second Amendment. And I know almost every person we have on the podcast has a story of when they took a friend or a sibling or maybe their child, to the range for the first time or hunting for the first time, and went over, the gun safety and got to experience hands-on with them the world of firearm ownership. And I think those are very sacred times in our own individual Second Amendment journey, where we're able to maybe pass the baton's not the right word, but welcome them into a space and start educating them on, okay, well, how fantastic it was to shoot the gun, how fun it was, how confident it is knowing that you can defend yourself and your family. Now is the time that we have to defend this right and to make sure that it doesn't go away, so that we can continue to defend ourselves and our family.
Well, and one other thing with that is you don't need to take somebody who's, maybe anti-gun or, maybe not fully anti, but doesn't necessarily like them. You don't need to take people from, let's go on the happy scale, the frowny face all the way to the smiley face. Just taking people from a frowny face to a neutral face and getting them one step closer, I think is huge. Switching an opinion from, dislike to neutral is just as important as neutral to favorable. Because that neutral, we can work with that. At least people are a little bit more receptive. It's kind of like, you look at your political ideologies and you have people that are so far left and people that are so far right. If we can just get more of the people in the middle to start talking and having good dialogue, people are more receptive there. You're not going to get people that are receptive on the edges, but if you can get them just a little bit closer, at least you can open up that dialogue and start to have those meaningful conversations.